Chiefs fans, welcome to another episode of Gridiron Lines. This is your host, Gary McKenzie, back at you again for another show here at RGR Football, the best Chiefs YouTube content you can find anywhere. Unfortunately, I cannot say the same for the way the Chiefs have been playing. They've not been playing the best as of late. Their offense continues to sputter. And last week at Lambeau Field, many of us Chiefs fans were expecting to have some nice smoked Gouda there in the land of cheese in Wisconsin. But the only thing that was getting smoked in that game was the Chiefs' offense. They got stuck on 19 points, which is a number I feel like the Chiefs are cursed with. If they ever get to 19 points in a game, I feel terrible. And I don't know, maybe it's confirmation bias, but the Chiefs put forth an offensive effort that smelled like Lindbergh cheese, and they did not get the job done versus the Packers. And so, really, at this season's core, I feel that many Chiefs fans are disappointed. And that's the theme of this week versus the Buffalo Bills. This is the battle of the disappointments. So, much like whenever I get an argument with my younger brother, it must be how my parents feel watching us duke it out. Just a battle of disappointments between the Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. But not to kind of revel in any of Buffalo's sufferings, but in terms of disappointments, the Chiefs are 8-4, and we're disappointed in the way that the season's going. Buffalo is 6-6. The Chiefs have the 18th best offense in terms of SRS score. The Bills have number 8. The Chiefs have number 3 defensive SRS defense, according to Pro Football Reference, while the Bills have number 17. So while both of these franchises are coming into this game disappointed with the way the season has gone, I kind of want to say that in terms of disappointing yourselves or being disappointed, the Bills have done more of that than the Chiefs this year. So things could be worse for Kansas City. The Chiefs' 4 losses came against Detroit, at Denver versus Philadelphia, and versus the Green Bay Packers. And that Packers loss might be their worst loss of the season so far. Whereas the Bills have lost to the New York Jets week 1. They lost to Jacksonville. They lost to New England. They lost to Cincinnati. They lost to Denver. And they lost to Philadelphia. So the Bills have 2 more really disappointing losses this year than the Chiefs. And it comes from some of Josh Allen's helter-skelter play with poorly timed turnovers, throwing the ball to the other team too much. But if I were to ask you this season, which quarterback do you think is playing better, Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes? Many of you might think that Josh Allen has been playing better. But comparing these two quarterbacks' numbers, they're pretty similar in a lot of ways. And Josh Allen, I would argue that, yeah, he has played a little better than Mahomes this year, but they're not too far apart from one another. So Mahomes is number 8 in passing yards with 3,127. Josh Allen's number 4 with 3,214. So not even 100 yards more than Patrick Mahomes 12 games into the year in terms of passing yards. In terms of passing touchdowns, Mahomes has 20. That's good for number 5. Josh Allen has 24. That's good for number 3. So they're very close there. In terms of interceptions, this is where both of these quarterbacks have struggled this year. Mahomes has the 4th most interceptions in the NFL with 10, whereas Josh Allen has the 2nd most interceptions with 13. So Josh Allen has thrown a lot of picks this year, and it's really hurt the Buffalo Bills. In terms of yards, adjusted yards per attempt, Mahomes is number 15 with 7 adjusted yards per attempt. Josh Allen is number 10 with 7.2. So only 0.2 off between those two quarterbacks there. Mahomes is number 4 in QBR. Josh Allen is number 3. Mahomes is number 10 in quarterback rating with a 95.1 rating, whereas Josh Allen is number 9 with a 95.8 quarterback rating. So as bad as Mahomes' season has been, and as up and down as Josh Allen's season has been, a lot of people thinking he's having a pretty good year for himself, really being the only person on that Bills team doing much of anything. He's right next to Mahomes in a lot of categories. And speaking of Mahomes, this has been his worst season with the Chiefs in his 6 years as a starter. This is his worst yardage total. He only has 3,127 yards. His worst yards per attempt total. His worst touchdown total. And his worst yards per reception or yards per catch total in the 6 years he's been in Kansas City. So Mahomes is having a bad year. And the only silver lining to see for Mahomes this year is that this is his second best completion percentage he's had in his career with 67.8% completion percentage. And then his third best sack percentage season. He's not getting sacked very much. And a lot of people want to blame the Chiefs wide receivers for this poor output. And I would agree with some of that blame. But as many things in life, it's never cut and dry or black and white. The Chiefs' problems on offense aren't just centered around their wide receivers. It's a team effort. So the team is getting penalized a lot. They're setting themselves backwards on offensive drives. That's not helping. The offensive line is getting a lot of holding penalties. And we saw Wanya Morris step in last week. And if there was a bright spot from that Packers game, Morris played really well. And the Chiefs could have a potential long-term option at the tackle position. And that's kind of the one positive that you can really take away from that Packers game last week. But in terms of the team's offensive struggles, I don't think it's all on the wide receivers. They play a big part of the problem. But it starts with Mahomes. It starts with Andy Reid, the offensive coordinator, Matt Nagy, then the receivers, and perhaps the running game and the offensive line and blocking the penalties. This is not a problem that is solely on the wide receivers' shoulders. They bear a lot of the blame, but it's a team problem on offense, and that's why they're number 18 in terms of offensive SRS score. And this has been the worst offense the Chiefs have had in the Patrick Mahomes era. And we're 12 games into the season, kind of the identities are formed. And I'll talk about identities in just a second, but I looked back for the Chiefs' previous seasons to see when they've had a worse year offensively in terms of their wide receiver one production. So in terms of production, Rashee Rice is currently the Chiefs' wide receiver one. He has 591 receiving yards after 12 games in the season. The last time the Chiefs had a worse offensive output from their number one receiver was in 2016 when Jeremy Maclin had 536 yards after 12 games into the year. For reference, Juju Smith-Schuster had 762 yards receiving after 12 games last season when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. And then prior to that 2016 year, you have to go all the way back to 2009 when the Chiefs had Dwayne Bowe, and he had the most receiving yards on the team after 12 games with 589 yards. So the Chiefs wide receiver core, we keep wanting to see Rashee Rice break out and be a good number one receiving option for this team. The Chiefs made a concerted effort to throw him the ball last week, which I thought was promising, but they haven't started throwing him the ball down the field very much. And I think that's an element of Rashee Rice's game where he can really excel and succeed. And maybe there's some reason the Chiefs offense hasn't been trying to do that yet. Maybe they're trying to work him into that role. But I do like that they're getting him the ball. And I think that's a positive sign for things going forward if they continue to try to do that, because good things are going to happen when they throw him the ball. But honestly speaking, Rashee Rice has been the lone bright spot in the Chiefs wide receiver room. MVS and Sky Moore have been just an absolute problem for this Chiefs offense. And I don't know if things are going to improve between those two. So it's going to be a tough road for Mahomes. He's going to have to really shoulder the load for this Chiefs team. And I mentioned earlier the Chiefs' identity. And I think many Chiefs fans and maybe even the Chiefs team right now are having somewhat of an identity crisis. So that's the second term I wanted to talk about in this video, is just the identity crisis that the Chiefs fans and the Chiefs are facing right now, because in the past with Mahomes, they had always focused on having a dominant and explosive offense. They took care of the ball. They didn't turn it over very much. And then they had a middling defense. So the defense did just enough to help them win games, but the offense was really the crown jewel of the team. And in this year, in present times, that paradigm has been shifted completely on its head, where the Chiefs now have a dominant defense, but they're turning the ball over a lot on offense. And then in addition to that, they have a middling offense. They don't have a top-tier offense like they did in years past. And because of this, Chiefs fans have had this idea that we've seen Patrick Mahomes for 5 seasons really take care of the offense, move the ball, score a lot of points, and the defense has done just barely enough to keep the Chiefs winning games. And this year that's been flipped on its head. So right now, asking who the Chiefs are and knowing who they are from an identity standpoint, they're a team that is a defensive football team with a mediocre offense, and they don't take care of the ball very well. Fortunately for the Chiefs, I think that they can work on two things that are causing them a lot of problems this year, especially with their identity, that are not positive things to have to identify themselves with. And those two things are, one, taking care of the ball, and then two, playing sloppy in terms of penalties. I think that turning the ball over and the penalties are things that can be fixed from an attention and a focus standpoint. And that if those two things are fixed, then things will improve on the offensive side of the ball. But if the Chiefs continue to get holding penalties at the worst time, set drives back, make mistakes on offense, and then turn the ball over, the offense is going to still continue to struggle to score points. So those are two real things that this team can fix from a mental standpoint that can be resolved. They just have to do it. And so a lot of the pressure is going to be on Andy Reid, and I place these problems squarely on Andy Reid's shoulder. So obviously he can't be the one that's, holding or grabbing, but he can design plays to help try to alleviate some of that pressure on the offensive lineman. He can design plays where there are safer decisions to make for Patrick Mahomes. And so if the Chiefs fix those two things, taking care of the ball and getting fewer turnovers, I think that's kind of the tonic or the medicine that can help this Chiefs offense play better. Looking at the playoff picture, so big matchup versus the Buffalo Bills. And if the Chiefs lose this matchup versus Buffalo, their hopes for the number one seed are going to be much more difficult. And realistically speaking, the Chiefs do have an opportunity to win their last 5 games. I believe if they win their last 5 games, they will own that number one seed and have home field advantage again. But looking at the current playoff picture, the Dolphins are in the number one seed, Buffalo's in the number 2 seed, Kansas City's number 3 seed, Jacksonville's number 4 seed. Miami, their remaining schedule, they have Tennessee at home, the Jets at home, Dallas at home, the Cowboys at home. Then they go to Baltimore, and then they have Buffalo at home. So 4 out of their last 5 games are at home. Realistically speaking, those matchups between Tennessee and New York Jets, those should be automatic wins for that Dolphins team. Then they have Dallas at home. That's going to be a tough one. They might lose that one. Then they go to Baltimore. That's another tough one. They might lose that one as well. And then they have Buffalo at home. And Buffalo has always played the Dolphins well. And we'll see what happens in the last game of the year. Baltimore's last 5 games of the season, they have the Rams at home. Then they go to Jacksonville. Then they go to San Francisco. It's another tough game for them. Then they have Miami at home. Then they have Pittsburgh at home. Realistically speaking, looking at Baltimore here, they have 2 games that they might lose in this schedule with going to Jacksonville and playing the 49ers in San Francisco. Next, the Chiefs, number 3 seed. They have 5 remaining games, one with Buffalo at home. Then they go to New England. Then they have the Raiders at home, the Bengals at home, and then they go to the Chargers. It's a very realistic shot the Chiefs can finish the season 5-0. If they do, I think they'll lock up the number 1 seed. If they lose one of these remaining games, then they'll be 12-5, and I just don't know if they'll be able to lock up the 1 seed with the other teams that are vying for that number 1 seed. Then you have Jacksonville. They go to Cleveland. They have Baltimore at home. Then they go to Tampa Bay. They have Carolina at home. Then they go to Tennessee. Jacksonville should be favored in all of these games except for that one versus Baltimore. So it's fortunate that the Chiefs have the tiebreaker versus the Jaguars. That way, if the two of them finish with the same record, they'll be above Jacksonville. The same goes for Miami. If they tie with Miami, they have the head-to-head record versus them too. As of now, though, looking at this schedule, I cannot tell you that I think that there's a true number 1 team out of this group that's going to really lock it up for sure. So there's 5 games left in the year. Let me know down in the comments, do you think the Chiefs get the number 1 seed? What do you think about the Chiefs' current identity crisis, both with the team and with the fans as they're adjusting to this different style of play? The Chiefs traded Tyreek Hill, and they got defensive players, and this is the result of that. I, for one, still love the fact that Mahomes has a top-tier defense. I think if the Chiefs can take care of the penalties on offense and the turnovers on offense, things will change for this unit. They just have to do it and get the mental focus to get to that point. Also, let me know down in the comments, who do you think is going to win this week versus Buffalo? I went 0-2 last week, so I am now 14-11, still on the winning side of things. And I believe the Chiefs should be probably 4 or 5 point favorites versus this Buffalo Bills team in Kansas City. And once again, I'm going to think the Chiefs are going to bounce back in this game. I'm taking Kansas City to cover the spread and also win the game. Hopefully I win both of those, but you never know. But let me know down in the comments, who are you taking on this game? Do you think the Chiefs cover the spread? And lastly, hit that like button, down here somewhere. If you haven't done so already, we really appreciate it. And then also, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. We truly appreciate everyone who watches the videos here at RGR Football and appreciate everyone who's subscribed. We continue to work hard to give you the best content we can. But that's it from my notes this week on the back of one of my students' assignments. Let's go Chiefs, and let's bounce back from a bad loss versus the Packers. The Buffalo Bills are coming to Kansas City, and they're going to be fighting for the playoff life. It'll be a tough game, so hopefully the Chiefs can pull it out. But that's all I've got. This is Gary, signing out.
Thanks for watching this video from the team at RGR Football. Click these videos to see more, and subscribe to RGR Football.